You weren't born poor. You were conditioned to be. And the worst part is, no one told you this, because they didn't know either. They were also conditioned and they passed it on. The way you think about money, the way you react when you have too much of it or not enough, the anxiety when spending, the guilt when saving, none of this is natural. It's trained, programmed, repeated, rewarded. Think back to your childhood. When was the first time you heard someone say, "Money doesn't grow on trees"? Or, "Do you think I'm made of money?" Or maybe even, "Rich people are arrogant." These phrases seem harmless, but they're not. Each one plants a seed that says, money is hard, money is a fight, money is for others, not for you. And when repeated enough times, this seed takes root. It grows inside your mind. It becomes a belief, and beliefs shape behavior. They shape emotion. They shape your life. But here's the cruel twist. The people who implanted these beliefs in you weren't trying to harm you. They were trying to protect you, to prepare you, to teach you how to survive, because they also lived in fear, in scarcity, in limitation. And that fear, that scarcity became a form of love, a love that said, don't dream too big, be realistic. Settle down before life gets worse. This is where your financial journey truly began. Not the day you opened a bank account, not your first paycheck, but the moment your mind was trained to associate money with fear, shame, and struggle. And until you unlearn this conditioning, you'll keep repeating it, even when you don't want to, even when you earn more, even when life is better. Because the real prison isn't financial, it's mental, and it starts in childhood. To understand why you were conditioned to be poor, we need to look not only at your personal history, but at the very way society educates people about money. Let's start with school. You spent over a decade of your life sitting in a classroom. You learned math, grammar, science. You memorized formulas, dates, capitals. But no one ever taught you how to deal with money. Not how to invest, not how to save, not how to deal with emotional spending, financial anxiety, or debt. Worse than that, the school system wasn't designed to make you wealthy. It was designed to make you obedient. The current model of education, the one used in most countries, even today, was created in the industrial era. Its purpose was not to create leaders or free thinkers. It was to create factory workers, people who knew how to follow orders, who stood in line, who asked for permission to speak, who repeated information without questioning it. And in that model, questioning is dangerous, creativity is inconvenient, independence is punished. Now, what does that have to do with money? Everything. Because financial freedom requires the opposite of obedience. It requires autonomy. It requires courage to take risks. It requires self-knowledge and emotional resilience. It requires you to think beyond the system, not serve it blindly. But how can you break out of a system you were trained to obey? That's where the programming begins. It's not just cultural, it's emotional. From a young age, every time you took initiative, you were told to wait. Every time you thought big, you were told to shrink. Every time you dreamed out loud, someone said, don't get ahead of yourself. And over time, you adapted. You shrank. You obeyed, not because you were weak, but because being accepted felt safer than being exceptional. Because in your mind, exceptional people were the others, the rich, the lucky, the chosen ones, not you. And this is how a child with talent, ambition, and creativity becomes an adult who believes they're not worthy of abundance. Imagine a child growing up in a home where money is always a source of tension. Parents arguing about bills, the stress of rent, the anxiety of not knowing if the paycheck will last until the end of the month. This child doesn't need to hear anything to understand what money represents. She feels it. In the silence at the dinner table, in the mother's tired sigh, in the father's frustration when the card gets declined, in the absence of what other children have. That's where it starts. With emotional association, the brain of a child is a sponge not only for knowledge, but for emotion. And the emotions tied to money become permanent codes. If the emotion is fear, the brain will associate money with danger. If the emotion is guilt, the brain will associate having money with being selfish. If the emotion is absence, the brain will see money as something that is always missing. Now take that child and put her in school, a place where success is measured by grades, obedience, and silence, where no one talks about entrepreneurship, investment, or financial mindset, where the only future you're taught to pursue is employment, a job, a salary, a safe and predictable path. This child is being trained, not educated. She's learning to fit into the system, not to challenge it. And when she starts working, she repeats what she learned. She spends to feel momentary pleasure. She fears asking for a raise. She feels guilty when she has too much, and ashamed when she has too little. Even when she begins to earn more, she sabotages herself. She increases her lifestyle to match her income. She avoids checking her bank account. She feels anxiety just hearing the word investment. Why? Because her subconscious mind trained for scarcity doesn't feel safe in abundance. And this creates a psychological paradox. You want more. You dream of financial freedom. But when it starts to happen, a part of you pulls back. You procrastinate. You spend irrationally. You destroyed the very progress you made. Not because you're incapable, but because, deep down, your mind still believes that wealth is not your place. And this belief is not rational. It's emotional. It's ancestral. It was passed down through generations, and unless you stop and question it, it becomes your identity. But here's the truth. Scarcity is not a destiny. It's a script. And every script can be rewritten. You don't need a prison cell to live in captivity. Sometimes, all it takes is a limiting belief repeated enough times that you no longer question it. I'm not good with money. I wasn't born for this. I'll never have enough. These aren't thoughts. They're chains, invisible, silent, but incredibly powerful. And where do these chains come from? They come from every time you were rewarded for playing small, every time you were praised for not being greedy, every time someone made you feel guilty for wanting more. They come from the media you consume, from movies where the villain is rich and cold, and the hero is poor and humble, from songs that glorify struggle but mock ambition, from stories where wanting success is painted as a moral flaw, and so you internalize it. To be good, you must struggle. To be honest, you must suffer. To be humble, you must not want too much. It sounds noble, but it's a trap, because the system benefits from people who don't question their place in it. A worker who doesn't believe in their own value will never demand more. A consumer driven by insecurity will keep spending. A citizen afraid of risk will never challenge the structure. And so the system remains intact, not through force, but through mental conditioning. Now think about how you behave with money. Have you ever rejected an opportunity because it felt too good for you? Have you ever sabotaged your own financial progress without understanding why? Have you ever felt uncomfortable talking about money, asking for more, or receiving? These are not personality traits. They are learned emotional responses. They are defense mechanisms shaped by your environment, by the examples you had, by the messages you received and never questioned. And they operate in silence, while you work, while you spend, while you build a life that may look okay on the outside, but is secretly built on fear, shame, and limitation. The worst prison is the one that convinces you it's protecting you, that tells you, this is how it's supposed to be. This is just life. But it's not life. It's a mental pattern, and like all patterns, it can be broken if you dare to see it. There comes a moment, sometimes subtle, sometimes brutal, when the discomfort of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of changing. It might be a crisis, a layoff, a breakup, a deep feeling of exhaustion, or simply waking up one morning and realizing, I can't live like this anymore. This is the turning point. It doesn't always come with fanfare. Often, it comes in silence, in the form of an uncomfortable question. Why do I live like this if I don't want to? And that's when you start to see it. You see how much of your life is shaped by fear, not logic. You see how many decisions you've made just to be accepted, just to feel safe, just to avoid judgment. You start to question things you never dared to question. Why do I believe I need to work endlessly to deserve rest? Why do I feel guilty when I buy something for myself? Why do I panic when I have more than enough? And when you dig deeper, you begin to understand it's not about money. It never was. It's about the emotional meaning you gave to money, the role it plays in your identity, the weight it carries in your relationships, the emptiness it tries to fill and never does. And here comes the most important insight. If your relationship with money is emotional, then financial freedom is not just a technical change. It's an emotional revolution. It's not just about budgeting or investing or earning more. It's about healing. It's about rewriting your inner narrative. It's about choosing new beliefs consciously, daily, painfully. And that process is not linear. Sometimes you move forward, sometimes you fall back. But with each step, the chains get weaker, the fog lifts, and you start to see you are not your past. You are not your family's fears. You are not your childhood conditioning. You are free to rewrite the story, but it won't happen by accident. It takes intention, clarity, and courage. Courage to disappoint those who expected you to stay small. Courage to say no to what no longer fits. Courage to step into a version of yourself that your old self wouldn't recognize. And most of all, courage to believe you're allowed to thrive. Your conditioning is not your fault, but it is your responsibility. No one chooses the beliefs they were raised with. No one chooses the fears they inherit. But everyone, absolutely everyone, can choose to question them. That's where real change begins. Not with more hustle, not with more sacrifice, but with more awareness. And that awareness brings you to an uncomfortable but liberating truth. You were trained to survive, not to thrive. Everything around you is built to keep you small, compliant, and dependent. But now you know. And when you know, you can choose. You can break the cycle. But how? Here are 3 practical but deeply transformative lessons. Every time you make a financial decision, stop and ask, where is this coming from? Is it fear? Is it guilt? Is it a story you were told that no longer makes sense? Track the belief behind the behavior. Write it down. Challenge it. Ask yourself, do I still want to carry this belief into my future? Forget society's definition. Forget social media's performance. What does wealth mean to you truly? Peace of mind? Time freedom? Being able to help your family? Not living paycheck to paycheck? When you define wealth by your own values, you stop chasing illusions and start building what matters. The people around you shape your ceiling. If you only hear scarcity, fear, and limitation, that becomes your internal narrative. Change the input. Find mentors. Read books. Watch content that expands you. Join communities that normalize abundance, not glorify struggle. Because the truth is, you're not alone. There's a generation waking up, questioning, rebuilding, healing the emotional wounds that kept them stuck in cycles of scarcity for decades. And you're part of that. Not because you have all the answers, but because now you've started asking the right questions. Now it's your turn. What limiting belief about money did you grow up with? What's the phrase, the lesson, the story that you heard so many times? You started to believe it was true? Maybe it was, money doesn't grow on trees. Rich people are selfish. You have to work yourself to death to succeed. Or simply, this life isn't for people like us. Share it in the comments. When you put it into words, you begin to take its power away. And someone reading your story may recognize their own chains too. If this video helped you, if it opened your eyes, consider subscribing to CashPhrenia. Here, we don't teach you to cut lattes. We help you cut through mental conditioning. We expose the hidden patterns that sabotage your financial life and give you the tools to rewrite your story, because true financial freedom starts in the mind. And every mind, no matter how conditioned, can be liberated. See you in the next episode.